الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم إلى يوم الدين. Today inshallah we'll go through the fourth juz, and the fourth juz goes from verse 92 from Surah Al-Imran to 23 of Surah Al-Nisa. And if you look at the theme of that juz, that actually the main ones is the unity of the ummah and justice in family and society. So the two elements of it. And this is done, and obviously there is no society or no family or no community actually will survive if it did not have these two, that they should be united and they should act in justice and mercy. If you don't have these, forget about, everything else. And this comes, the root of having this unity and justice and mercy comes from the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And through that we learn through revelation. So therefore, one of the first gems that I want to mention is that beware of division. This is the most dangerous, and frankly, this is the problem that we have among the Muslims today. And therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, see, it's interesting. Always you find the link. If you have taqwa in a community or a people, they will be united. If you lack taqwa, you are not united. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started a command for the unity by the taqwa. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu taqullaha haqqa tuqatih. O you who believe, be conscious, have taqwa of Allah as Allah deserves this type of taqwa that you have. You have to be conscious of Allah as Allah deserves it, And then, وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. And don't die except as a Muslim. And then comes in وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. And hold fast all together in the robe of Allah and do not become divided. So the command of hold fast came after the two commands or the two attributes of the Muslims. Which one? To have the taqwa and don't die except as a Muslim. Don't die except as a Muslim, because you have taqwa, and then the sign that show you have taqwa and you are not going to die as a Muslim except as a Muslim, it is going to be the unity around the robe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore, when you see division in a community, then there is no taqwa. By definition, there is no taqwa. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the taqwa and the unity does not come because they ignorant. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَكُونُوا, don't be like those الَّذِينَ تَفَرَّقُوا وَاخْتَلَفُوا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتِ. So the division did not come out of ignorance, but no, they were divided after clear proofs came to them. وَأُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. And they have this grave punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So people who divide, they are not dividing because misunderstanding. No, they divide intentionally. They want to divide for self-serving interest. And the key and this is you find, in fact, actually, even within communities, within Houston here, you find the person who wants to get a community around him on his masjid, he will try to always badmouth the other masajid, so they cannot do them, so he doesn't lose his supporters, So it's not because of principle or anything, it is just because of self-serving interest. And therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes also in this, as a follow of this, define to us element of the taqwa. Because sometimes we translate taqwa as being conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I always say, define the term in the Quran from the Quran. Allah subhanahu, if the taqwa is so important, There is no way Allah will not define it clearly and repeat the definition in so many places. And it actually, we know in the Juz 1, the definition comes. And now we hear Allah gave us another expansion of that definition. And we look to this since it starts with unity. What is the element that Allah emphasizing here? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَجَنَّةٍ عَرْضُهَا السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضُ عِدَّةٌ مُتَّقِينَ. Now we all have to compete, race toward the forgiveness from your, and the garden whose width spans the heaven and the earth, prepared for whom? For those who have taqwa. So the taqwa is a ticket for you to go to paradise. Then Allah subhanahu, who are they? الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي السَّرَّاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ. Those who spend in prosperity and adversity. They are generous. So the attributes of a person who muttaqi is a generous person. It doesn't matter if he is poor, he's generous. If he is rich, he is generous. والكاظمين الغيظ والعافين عن الناس والله يحب المحسنين. And then they restrain their anger and forgive people. And why we get division? Because people get angry from each other. And nobody's tolerating the other one, so no forgive. So in that case, tying to that unity, Allah gave us three attributes, key attributes of taqwa: generosity, restraining the anger, and being forgiving everybody what he has. And that will be a key element. If you have a community like this, they always control their anger, they forgive each other, they're generous with each other, they will be united in this regard. The second gem we can find in the Jews is that this, as a Muslim nation, is superior. Allah designated as a superior nation. But it's not superior nation, just without requirement. Allah set a requirement. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ. You are indeed the best nation ever raised for mankind. What is the manifestation of our best nation? تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. That you command what is right, forbid what is wrong, and believe in Allah. Now, this one you have to understand when we come to أمرون بالمعروف. What is this ma'ruf? Is ma'ruf coming actually from a word urf. An urf, which is the customs. That means when you are commanding people to correct something, you are commanding to correct something that everybody know it is good and proper. And when you prohibit them, not because you have a fiqh opinion that say, oh, this is how you should do this. No. The ma'ruf is much broader. It is something called the fitrah. The fitrah Allah created for us to know what is right and what's wrong. So you don't come to the masjid and give and say, oh, I'm going to order a person because he prayed a certain way, for example. And no, if it's a fiqh issue, you have no reason at all to advise anybody about it. If you want to ask the question, but don't advise. Al-ma'ruf is something everybody know that lying is bad, stealing is bad, adultery is bad. Everybody knew this. So if you see some people shouting and getting angry is bad, So in that case, when we talk about the ma'ruf, not go to just anything that you think you heard a talk from a talk and find, oh, this is really what is important. No, this is something ma'ruf coming from the urf that all of us agree this is a proper. But now you come and say, wait a minute, about all of the community agree to something bad, No, but that has to be coming from the innate nature, the pure nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He created the human being in the beginning. And everybody will know this. So it is not it's not related to different injuristic opinion in this case. But remember the unity of this community. Look at us. We came from different places, different culture, full of different school of fiqh. So how can this should be a blessing for us. This diversity should be a blessing, should not be a reason for our division. Frankly, why we are all friends with each other around one thing. If it was in the Quran, none of us will know each other. So if we deviate from it, there was no unity among us. And this is why Allah unite around the robe of Allah. The robe of Allah is the Quran, and His message. That's how we do it. And we have more commonality among us than division. No matter, even if you get different sects, every sect that exists, they believe in the Prophet ﷺ, believe in the Quran, pray toward the Kaaba. Shouldn't these be fundamental that we at least unite around, rather than worrying about specific details that people differ on and they try to escalate it? The other one, also another gem in the Jews, that if you are giving responsibility, whether it's your family or leadership for a community or any position, you have to have mercy. It is not a matter, of domination. Now I am the boss. No. You get people around you by your behavior, by your kindness to them, by your support of them. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet, why the companion loved the Prophet so much. He said, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. The reason for the mercy from Allah, you were gentle with them. And then his important, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَظًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. And if you were fuzz, which is translated as harsh, and غَلِيظ الْقَلْبِ, they translated as hard-hearted, they would have been dispersed from among you. They would have left you, even if you are a messenger of Allah. But if you look at this, what is this fuzz and غَلِيظ الْقَلْبِ? I mean, it seems like there are similarities in the word. Harsh and hard-hearted, is the same. But actually, the word fuzz, it relates to the water in the stomach belly, that when the people would starving in the desert and they have no water and they are going to die, and that water is smelly, they will slaughter it and drink it. So means that what? Even if you are giving them, it's an essential for their survival, and they know it. If you are not merciful with them, they will not accept it. Imagine now if you're trying to train somebody something he's not convinced it is correct. If he is convinced it's correct, you have to be merciful and kind to him. But if he is not convinced, you have to be even more kinder and more generous and have good, strategy for it. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue. فَاعْفُ عَنْهُمْ. Forgive them if they make mistakes, forgive them about it. وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. To get a unity, you have to get people to consult with each other. It's not because a person is a boss, he make the decision, and it's my way or the highway. No. Get the people opinion, and then when you agree on something, let us all, yes, we might have different opinion, but at least at the end we get a majority agreement. Let us proceed then, and everybody has to rally around that decision. And therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala وشاورهم في الأمر وإذا عزمت فتوكل على الله إن الله يحب المتوكلين. And in that case, after you get consultation with them, you made a decision, then in that case you rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to ensure the success of this activities. And that's, by the way, for a family too. If you are a family, it's not like the father is, this is what are we going to do? This is what are we going to go? No, consult with them and they make the decision. If everybody happy, rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and proceed. And obviously, if you are in a voluntary organization, that's even required even more. Because remember, the Prophet ﷺ ran actually a voluntary organization. Because he have no authority really on them. People have to come and support him, in that regard. And therefore, this character has to be very important for us. The other one, that if you want, and this is why Allah emphasized it so many times, if you want to become a prosperous society, you have to have technology. You have to have sciences, And this is why Allah emphasized, and interesting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasized always the creation, particularly in the heavens, in the sky. إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَاتٍ لِلْأَلْبَابِ. Indeed, in the creation of the heaven and earth and duration of the night and day are signs for those who have understanding. If you how it can be a sign if you don't understand? Now we look at this, heaven, and we said, look how small the earth, how big is the other, how many galaxies exist, how many stars exist, how fast we are moving. We get to know Allah subhanahu through this, but that comes through knowledge, you know. And why the sky? Because it turns out actually without superiority in the knowledge of the sky, you will never be able to rule the world. You know, if you really think about it, a small country, about 5 million people, you know, there is 2 billion people scared from it. Because of what? Because of their number? Because one technology is controlling the sky. That's what we are. And how many times Allah subhanahu talk about the sky, the sky, the sky. And if we're just smart enough, we read, and our scientists look at this, we better study it, we better reach it, we better go to it, to figure it out. We within these 2 billion people will not be worthless people. Cannot even feed a human being. So another important lesson, and this is for all of us, particularly those, if your kids already graduated and so on, maybe you're still worried because you're worried about your grandchildren and so on. But how about your own children? If you're young and just have younger children and afraid if you die, what is going to happen to them, particularly living in a society in which you don't have a lot of relatives or close by. Allah subhanahu gave us this advice. وَلْيَخْشَ الَّذِينَ لَوْ تَرَكُوا مِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّةٌ ضِعَافًا خَافُوا عَلَيْهِمْ. Let those who fear for their helpless children after them. So you have a children and you are afraid what is going to happen to them after you. What Allah said came with the same concept. فَلْيَتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَلْيَقُولُوا قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا. They should have taqwa of Allah and say the right things. So it is not your bank account, because a lot of time we emphasize, yeah, I have money for them so they can go to school. The money can go. It is the righteousness, is the legacy that you have of righteousness. That's what will stay. And there is an interesting story around it. I mentioned here in this, I said, they have Khalifa Umar ibn Aziz and then, and Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. Both of them are Amawi Khulafa. Umar ibn al-Aziz. Umar al-Aziz was one of the most righteous, Khalifa, and so on. So there is Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, which also came after as a Khalifa. Has one scholar who came, Muqatil ibn Sulaiman, came to him. Muqatil ibn Sulaiman came to Ja'far, and Ja'far told him, Izni, give me an advice. And Muqatil told him, should I give you advice with what I heard or what I have seen? And he said, no, give me advice with what you have seen. He said, I saw the children of Umar ibn Aziz, and I saw the children of, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. He said, when Umar ibn Aziz died, he has 11 children, and he left for them 18 dinars. He gave everything away. And out of this 18 dinar, they bought the clothing to bury him. So basically, they inherited nothing. And he said, and then I saw, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, when he died, Khalifa Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, when he died, he also have 11 children and left to every one of them 1,000. The Arab didn't count more than 1,000. So 1,000 means a billion. 1,000,000 dinar. And what I have seen the children of Umar ibn Aziz become so wealthy that they would have supported, basically a whole army. And I saw with my eyes the children of Abdul Malik al-Marwan who inherited these millions of dinars, they begging on the streets. And he said, that is wisdom. That is what I saw. So if you want to leave, you want the legacy for your children, be righteous. Don't worry about, let Allah subhanahu take care of them in this regard. Maybe I want to timber this a little bit with something. You know, when Prophet ﷺ was seeking money, charity to support an army, then Sayyidina Umar came in. He said, okay, Abu Bakr was always the most generous, you know. So Umar once he said, today I'm going to compete with Abu Bakr. I'll be ahead of him. So he came with whatever contribution he wants to give to the Prophet ﷺ. And Sayyidina, Prophet ﷺ asked Umar, what did you leave for your family? He said, I left them half. I took half of my money, split it between you and them. Then came Abu Bakr. And he said, what did you leave for their family? He said, I left them Allah and his messenger. That means he brought all the money he has, give it to the Prophet ﷺ. I want to highlight something here. Left to them Allah makes sense. What is left to them his messenger means? Because what was the Prophet ﷺ? He was the head of the state. He was the leader of the state. Then he, in a way, I'm making here some interpretation, but I'm saying to timber this, that don't take all your money and don't leave your kids poor. Because in this case, he said, I know you are not going to let them starve. You are the leader. Allah is the one who is the provider, and you are the manager of this. Therefore, I'm leaving them to you. We are here. We are not living in a Muslim community. Therefore, would you get the support? Well, actually, you might have more support here than some Muslim countries, But anyway, so it is not the issue. Is it that yes, you can become, but obviously the taqwa is different than this one. But to leave this, so don't about somebody come and say, oh, brother Mamdouh saying that you should leave nothing for your children like Umar ibn Aziz and Allah will give them. No, I mean, they have to be also logical, but it has to be balanced, frankly. Because, and some people, frankly, who their kids graduated and, and working and so on, they don't need his money. And he still hoard the money and wants to keep it for them. Why? Take advantage of it, because as soon as transferred to them, you'd get benefit nothing from it. But if you spend it yourself and become generous with it, then in that case, it's a reward for you in that regard. So another one is that victory. Here is the interesting that this Jews discussed a couple of battles. A battle of Badr, a little bit of the battle of Badr and the battle of Uhud. And we know what happened in the battle of Badr. Battle of Badr, Muslim was my smaller number and became victorious. In battle of Uhud, Muslims started winning in the beginning and then lost. Lost to what? Because they deviated. Okay. So let's see how the surah said. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to come to them for a battle of Badr. وَلَقَدْ نَصَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ بِبَدْرٍ وَأَنْتُمْ أَذِلَّةٌ. That remember, Allah have supported you in Badr when you were weak. You were small number. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. Have taqwa of Allah. And there's a big lesson you will find in here in the Quran. When the person does something good, you can advise. When he is down, that is not the time for advice. That is a time for counsel and the comfort. Like, for example, your kids have a car accident. Is this a time now you tell him you should have didn't speed the limit, couldn't you look for the road and so on? Is this a time for it? He already upset. So when the Muslim came in with the battle, so battle of Badr, the victorious, they happy, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, be taqwa of Allah. I was the one who helped you get this. وَمَا النَّصْرُ إِلَّا مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. Remember this. Okay. Don't feel that now you're suddenly superior in this case. But when it came to Uhud, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. Don't grieve or despair. If you are, and you will be superior if you become a true believer. Yes, you deviated your belief a little bit, but don't worry about it. In that regard. So it is a comfort to them, and they also comes to them and said, if you felt the pain, they felt the pain too. Because sometimes we tend to, when the person is down, you try to load on him. No, that is not the time for advice. That's the time for comfort and make it easy for him. When he's doing something great, you can give the advice, because he's so happy now. You can temper a little bit the happiness in this case. And this is why the second part here also related to it. إن يمسسكم قرح فقد مس قوم قرح مثله. Yes, you get hurt, and suffered wounds in this battle of Uhud, but they also suffer. And وتلك الأيام نداولها بين الناس, and people, the things, the time will change. The days will alternate among people. And then Allah subhanahu give this. وليعلم الله الذين آمنوا ويتخذ منكم شهداء والله لا يحب الظالمين. Here is Allah subhanahu comes and says, okay, there is going to be a battle. There is going to be a struggle. There is wars is going to happen between the Muslim, conflict between Muslim and non-other groups. There is a purpose for it. This is not a random process. And this is why, frankly, if you look at what is happening now in Gaza, it is not a random process. It's the intention of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to let this happen. Why? Because look at this ayah. He said that is going to come back again. You will lose some time, you will become victory sometime. Some people die here, and when they die, because I want to select them. Because what is the most important, the highest level of this, or the most valuable this a believer should have? Being a martyr. Allah subhanahu, how are you going to be a martyr if you are not fighting against injustice? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلْيَتَّخِذُ مِنْكُمْ شُهَدَاءَ. Allah wants to do this, so we can take martyrs from you. And then Allah subhanahu, and then come and say, وَلِيُمَحِّصَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. And Allah then will actually test, and purify those who are believers. Because how are you going to purify them unless you put them in difficulties? And then and then come, and this is a rule now, the general rule here. أم حسبتم أن تدخلوا الجنة ولما يعلم الله الذين جاهدوا منكم ويعلم الصابرين. What do you think? You think you're all going to go to paradise? Is that easy? Until Allah knows those of you who would strive for His cause and those people who are steadfast. Allah will have to test you in this case. Remember, we've raised this issue about before. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do you think you are going to go to heaven unless Allah knows who struggles and who steadfast? Does Allah need us to demonstrate this to Him? Because He knew everything. What we said, when you use the word يعلم related to Allah in the Quran, is not lack of knowledge, but it is lack of a materialistic proof. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not judge us based on His knowledge. He judges us based on a materialistic proof of what we have done. And we said this before, because if you get a judge, if a judge see a crime, and then the crime come in front of him in a court, he cannot judge you based on his knowledge. He have to have a physical proof from somebody else. So here, that's why in the hereafter, people will come and Allah said, okay, there is an angel recorded to you, there is a video about you. They will say, no, we are not accepting this. We only accept what we admit. He said, okay, admit. Then Allah will let your limbs speak. So in that case, therefore, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means to Allah demonstrate or create condition, so you can demonstrate your condition yourself. You prove your own self. And that will be, you will be judged based on this, not based on just Allah knows that you are going to do it or don't do it. And then the end of the day, there is one thing that all of us knows, which is this will happen to us. One day we all will die. And then when we die, we'll be held accountable. And the successful one will be the one who will enter paradise. And Allah reminds us here, كل نفس ذائقة الموت وإنما توفون أجوركم يوم القيامة. Then every soul will test this, and you will be given full compensation for what you did. Whatever you did in this life, you will be accounted, will given compensation. Good, you will be given rewards for it. The evil, then you will hold accountable for it too. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, فَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةَ فَقَدْ فَازَ. The one who just kept away from the fire, زُحْزِح يعني pushed away a little bit from the fire and admitted to paradise, he is the one successful. He is the one that triumphant. One. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. And this life is with nothing but a deceptive enjoyment. So whatever we have in this life, the success is this. Don't, come to don't be, go to hell, move to paradise. That is the real success. Whatever things we do here, it doesn't, count. Surah also address another one, and this is when we moved now we finished Surah Al-Imran, and now we move to Surah Al-Nisa. Surah Al-Nisa, the focus on it actually in the rights of the weak member of the society. And in general, who are the weak member of the society? The weak member of society, the women, children, orphans, slaves or servant, they are the weak member of society. So you find the surah focus on it. So Allah subhanahu comes in to a relationship with women, even at the time, when you dislike your wife. So Allah subhanahu say, وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. That means, live with them with honor, with respect. Even if you hate them, you hate something of them, remember that what you hate, there might be good benefits from it. So Allah subhanahu فَإِن كَرِهْتُمُهُنْ فَعَسَى أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَيَجْعَلُ اللَّهُ فِي خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. That, okay, treat them, if you dislike them, whatever you dislike, it might good something that come out of it. So don't become judgmental and all the time. And then comes in and said, even if you are going to replace, to divorce, have this kindness. And if you give her something as a gift during the time, the good time you have with her, never take it back. Because when people sometimes go divorce, their anger, they want to make the other person as miserable as he can. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, وَإِنْ أَرَدْتُمْ اسْتِبْدَالَ زَوْجٍ مَكَانَ زَوْجٍ, you are going to replace, you are going to divorce a wife and get another one now. Then وَآتَيْتُمْ إِحْدَاهُنَّ قِنْطَارًا فَلَا تَأْخُذُوا مِنْهُ شَيْئًا. And you have given them a qintar, a ton of gold, basically, as a gift. Don't take anything from it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are you going to take it without any right you have, and then as a manifest sin, as a grave sin? All of the story about this one here. When Sayyidina Umar, when men, families were raising the dowry for their girls, and so Sayyidina Umar wants to make a rule against this high dowry, because the boy is coming to complain and said, we cannot marry because how much are they asking, And the woman, when he came during his khutbah, was making this, and a woman stood and said, Umar, you cannot do this. This is imagine, actually. I mean, sometimes you think about, that's a difference actually between us and them. Can you, your president is coming in to give a speech and something, and this is some woman comes in from nowhere and stand and said, wait a minute, you are wrong here, and do this. Can you do this? Here is Omar. Omar was running, was not running Arabia. He was running Arabia, running Syria, running Iraq, running Egypt. Look how big his, what he is running. He's a governor or president over all of these. And the woman comes, I make a rule which is beneficial for the people, and you objecting? And why she was objecting for him restricting the dowry? She quoted this ayah. He said, Allah, if you give them a ton of gold, who you are to tell them don't give them restricted amount? And he said, the woman is right, Omar make mistake, and he rescinded his ruling. So it's all, but look at this, the smart, it's one verse, and she was objective on it. It means that those people at that time, when they read the Quran, they transform it into that they can stand against anybody and argue their point in that case. Then there is also one which unfortunately Muslims abuse it. Allah about this marriage, 2 or 3 or 4, if you look at the ayat in the Quran, it talks always about orphans. The sanctions for multiple marriages, polygamy in Islam, is tied to treatment or, basically supporting orphans. Because what happened if a father died and a woman has orphans and a person wants to support it or help her, so how is going to go in the house, out of the house, and so on? That creates a problem. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, okay, in that case, in khiftum alla tuqsitu fil yatama, if you feel you are unable to do justice to the orphan because you're restricting yourself from supporting them because what people will say, فانكحوا ما طاب لكم من النساء, then marry multiple. You can marry one or two or four, in that case. But if you marry them, yes, you marry them with a good intention for the orphans, but you are not going to do justice among them, then don't do it. Don't sacrifice one right for another right in that case. Last lesson I'm going to make, I told you, I ask everybody to look 5 or 10. These are the 10th one I have, and this is the inheritance law. It has in the beginning of Surah Al-Nisa, there is an inheritance law that you're all familiar with. And I picked that ayah, لِلرِّجَالِ نَصِيبٌ مِّمَّا تَرَكَ الْوَالِدَانُ وَالْأَقْرَبُونَ وَالنِّسَاءُ نَصِيبٌ مِّمَّا تَرَكَ الْوَالِدَانُ وَالْأَقْرَبُونَ مَا قَلَّ مِنْهُ أَوْ كَثَرَ نَصِيبًا مَفْرُوضًا. That means for men has a share from what the parent and close relatives leave, and for women has a share from what the parent and the close relatives leave, whether small or large, it's a fixed amount. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed the amount. Now, we have problems that people start objecting to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the inheritance law. Everybody try to analyze it. And frankly, Allah does not have to explain to us his ruling. Remember when we talk about the first Jews, when the angel asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are going to create something in that, that cosmic shift, and did Allah answer them? He didn't answer them. He said, I know what you don't know. Basically, recognize your limits. So here too, we want to transgress it. Allah make a rule of certain things, and we don't like, and we want to analyze it, and they get away with it. Ya have you are, a slave, and Allah is not just a human master; He is the creator of the universe. So are you arguing with Him? Have that respect, accept it, and He have the wisdom. You don't have the wisdom, and you don't know. But even because of this, frankly, scholars started studying that concept because they know there is differences in it. So when they come and say that, Islamic inheritance law is not a blanket actually statement about the woman, the man takes double of the woman. It's not this way. But in the distribution, in the inheritance, in the laws, as they look at it, they come and said, it depends on the closeness of the kin, who's closer to you. It depends on the generational position. That means you are a new generation or older generation. The new generation needs more than the older one. And then they also have the financial responsibility. Who is responsible more? I'm responsible for myself. You are responsible for 2 people or 3 people. Then obviously you have to take something more. So all these taken into account, but people sometimes focus on one thing and forget about the rest of it in this regard. But even people always come and object and say, well, we have, men take double the women. No, if you look actually inheritance law, and they have looked at all of the rules that exist. There is 4 cases in which the male takes more than the female. 4 cases. There is 30 cases which the male and the female inherit the same thing. And there is 10 cases which the females inherit more than male. So the issue is not male and the female. The issue is related to the 3 principles I said, the closeness of kin, the generational position, and the financial responsibilities in it. So in that regard. But people sometimes take one and generalize it for everything else. طبعا you will want to know what is these 3 cases when the females take more than a male and so on. There is a table you can develop and do this. So this is a summary of the Jews, which is as a summary. Let me see here. What else? Yes. Yeah.
You have more details on this one, distribution?
Yes, yes, I do. I have actually a table. Actually, there's a table right here that I'm not putting it. Yeah, yeah, I can go for it. I can post it in the website, inshallah. But as a summary, yeah, summary in it, the first lesson was unity. Unity, please, unity is very important. Yeah, don't be a cause for making division among any group. You know, mercy and leadership. If you are in a position, you have to have a mercy. Mercy is a criterion. You get people around you. It's not that you are the boss and therefore you can make any decision. Encourage your kids and your grandchildren to study science, advance, because that's how you form civilization. The true protection for the children is your legacy. It's not your bank account, it's your legacy. Justice and mercy, particularly with women and orphans. Steadfastness, victory and Allah subhanahu wars happen. People die for intention because it's Allah who wanted them for some benefit to either, filter the good from the bad, identify who is really serious, who really true believer versus who's not. Everybody can claim belief, and then also select some people and make them martyrs, give them a higher position in paradise. And then everybody have to recognize that we all die and we will all be accountable. So take a heed when you still have a chance. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك اللهم لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا واصرف عنا شر ما قضيت فإنك يا ربنا تقضي بالحق ولا يقضى عليك. اللهم ادخلنا برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. اللهم اخرجنا من ظلمات الجهل والوهم إلى نور العلم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم اجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. اللهم اكفنا بحلالك عن حرامك وبطاعتك عن معصيتك وبفضلك عمن سواك. اللهم بفضلك ورحمتك أعلي كلمة الحق والدين. اللهم انصر الإسلام وعز المسلمين يا أكرم الأكرمين. Oh Allah, spread your mercy upon us. Shower us with your blessings. Increase our knowledge, grant us forgiveness, and reward us with the company of the prophets in the Firdaus al-A'la. Oh Allah, purify our hearts, strengthen our faith, increase our knowledge, and make us benefit from what you have taught us. Oh Allah, forgive our parents and all our friends and relatives who have passed away. Oh Allah, make their graves garden from heaven and grant them the Firdaus al-A'la. Oh Allah, we have many of our friends and relatives who are sick. Oh Allah, grant to all of them full and speedy recovery. Oh Allah, guide our children, protect them, and make them righteous. Oh Allah, grant us the power and the ability that we may be grateful for the favors you have bestowed upon us and our parent, and that we may do righteous deeds that are pleasing to you. Oh Allah, we seek from you all of the good, whether we know it or we don't. And we seek your refuge from all evil, whether we know it or we don't. Oh Allah, we seek refuge in you from incapacity, from laziness, from fear, from greed, from poverty, and from the torment of the grave. Oh Allah, we have many of our brethren who are living under oppression and injustice. Oh Allah, heal their trauma, protect their helpless, and grant them lasting peace and prosperities. Oh Allah, we ask with every name you have elected for yourself, that none of us leave this gathering, but his pains have been relieved, his worries have been removed, his debts have been paid, his weaknesses have been concealed, his sins have been forgiven, and his needs have been fulfilled. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.